Hello, hello, and welcome to part 2 of our live with Lisa Kelley. We had technical difficulties on my side, my apologies, and there's more right there. Let's see if we can get Lisa back. We were just going into details about what is the negative significance of the color purple in branding. So, Lisa, if you are watching, oh. I think Facebook heard our conversation earlier about us not liking Facebook Lives, and so now it is punishing us, is what I've come to the conclusion of. So Lisa, I think you are on. I see someone's watching us. If you are a viewer, if you want to identify yourself, that would be great, whoever's hopping on. Let's see. Oh, I see. Okay. I think you can request to be added in. Let's see. We're doing a lot of learning on this live, Lisa. This is, for those of you who were not watching the other live, this is actually Lisa's first live. In I'd probably say like 15th, but I still haven't mastered it. Shows that practice is necessary. Okay. I still don't see you, Lisa. So let's see. No viewers. I don't know why my phone wasn't cooperating before. Okay. Let's see if we can access it a different way. If not, I will hop off and hop back on and try to create a new one. Let's see if we host a watch party here. Also giving a chance for anyone. Oh, there's Lisa. Hello. Okay. Just adding you now. Third time's the charm, I think. We did it! I'm so sorry. I think my phone heard us from before. Does it just shut down?
Oh, goodness. I'm just glad it wasn't me. I was like, I got my partner to help me. I'm like, oh, I didn't touch anything. So I don't know what was the last thing you heard. I kind of thought, oh, no, maybe if they all heard what I said about purple, maybe just like the whole world crashed because so many people use purple.
Too many people use it.
Maybe they were saying, Mojo. No, I like purple.
So we were talking about new video. About the devils or negative using the color purple. Say those and you cut out right.
Oh, okay, sure. So some of the negative subliminal business words for the color purple and reasons why you might consider not using it in your brand is words like immaturity, impractical, cynical, aloof, pompous, arrogant. These two are the worst. Fraudulent, corrupt. So if you're taking taking people's money, that's not a good thing, right? And delusions of grandeur and the social climber. So what I was saying a little bit earlier is, I take my clients through a process where I make sure that I have an exercise where I hopefully don't allow their ego to get in the way. I time what they go through so they don't have a chance to think. It's just, do you have a hit for this word? Yes or no? If you do, check it, check it, check it, check it. And then when I go through and do my own exercise separate, I will come up with how many, what really, it's a beautiful process, because it is a science of who this entity is or who this person is. And the way I like to say that is, if you wanted to describe your business to someone who perhaps couldn't hear, or, couldn't see, like vice versa, right? If you're describing it to them, what is the personality? So like if you describe it to someone that didn't have sight, what would they hear? They would hear, oh, this brand is modern, it's classy, it's sophisticated, it's fun, it's, you know what I'm saying? So all those kinds of words. So it's a really fun process. And I do want to caveat and say that, I don't necessarily say purple's, always bad. What I'm saying is that I look at what industry is that client in, and then you consider the negatives of the colors, and you look at, does this not make sense for them? So for example, if I was branding a bank today, I would not brand a bank blue and gold, right? Because those were colors known back in the 80s and 90s that, when the crash happened, years ago, and different things where banks got kind of a reputation for, being cynical and taking your money and slimy and those kinds of things. And what's funny is if you look at gold and you look at blue, there's some really significant reasons why you wouldn't use those colors. So if any of my clientele was in the financial industry and they picked those colors, I would go to the alternate ones and stay away from that. But it really is a fun practice, because like I said before, this is truly how large agencies, this is the system that they use, because it is tried and true. So
that's awesome. Yeah, interesting enough is I've heard a lot of purple is a regal color, like royalty. So I feel like people gravitate to it. So I'd also like to see if you have any positive, just in case anybody were to do it when they're go and just swing it.
And I would say, if you have purple in your business, then consider, maybe if it's your primary color, consider that being what we would call your accent color, right? Like for example, on your website, that might be the colors of your buttons, not necessarily, the colors of your background or your content writing or things like that. So the positive words, and this is why I think people do gravitate to it, especially now that, the reality is that so many of us are waking up, and where our consciousness is rising. We're really wanting to help with the collective, to really raise the vibration. And so I think a lot of those types of people, they harness the positive words of like intuitive, psychic, unusual, individual, creative, inventive, mystery, fantasy, future, humanitarian, selfless, and unlimited. So those are certainly like this robust, like empowerment. And yet, if you're really wanting to have a sustainable business and make money and take money, that can be, the first word was immaturity, right? And so, again, we look at what is your business, what is your industry, because in some cases that won't matter. You know what I mean? So it's all relative, which is, I'm kind of a geek, but it's a lot of fun for me.
No, and it is very interesting. It's all about that subliminal, I for brand. We talked about a lot, and how this create a taste and anxiety, really, with the intention to take us around very, because if you go to sit there for 3 hours, they're not going to because it's a $4
exactly.
Right? So according to the business, you can see how
And for a lot of entrepreneurs businesses, the other color that I would recommend, that especially if you're like a speaker and you're branding yourself, one color to stay away from, in my opinion, the only other one that I'm kind of like a no on is red.
Okay. Can we have a red?
I do. Do you want to hear that?
Yeah.
You want to hear that? Okay, cool. Oh my gosh, I'm having so much fun. So the positive. Yeah, maybe I'll feel differently about it. By the way, I must say, the reason that I'm against Facebook Live as a brander is just because most people, the acoustics aren't right, or they're not lit well. Like, I have two big lights on me. And you also just kind of want to frame up the way that we're framed. And that's, of course, my partner's expertise, Carlos Hasso. So he made sure, it's like, all right, if we're doing this, we're going to do it right. So there's a little tip for Facebook Lives if you're going to do that. So let me get to the reds. I'm actually really drawn to red myself. So here's all the passion. I mean, the vivaciousness of the words, which is action, power, energy, speed, passion, desire, lust, strength, courage, attention getting, motivating, stimulating, energizing, driven, determined, exciting, warm, spontaneous, assertive, and confident. I identify with almost all of those, okay? And then if you look at the negatives, you're like, oh, maybe not. Maybe I don't want that as my predominant brand. So the subliminal negative meanings in business for this, for the color red, is aggression, anger, overbearing, quick-tempered, ruthless, fearful, intolerant, rebellious, obstinate, resentful, violent, and brutal.
Yeah, really.
It is such a contrast. So, and another technique that I use is when I do look at those top three colors, what's really fun is to look at the negatives and positives of all of them, because sometimes I just did one the other day with a client, and it was so interesting how, one of the colors that was really, I mean, she picked almost every word in that color, and it was so authentically her. And some of the negatives were just, it was like, oh, I just don't want to put this frequency out there for you. And yet one of the other colors that she picked ended up completely balancing and almost like zeroing out those negatives. And or sometimes the negatives, like, for example, if they're completely opposite of that person's personality, then we don't really take them into account, right? Because it's like, that doesn't really play. So it's really cool.
That's awesome. And then colors would you recommend for a brand?
It's so fun. It's like, I just branded a relationship coach, and it was the only time in the last 5 or 6 years that I got really stumped on the exercise, because her colors came out orange, purple, green, and I'm forgetting the other one. But anyway, those were like the three primary. And I'm like, oh, and brown. And I was like, what am I going to do with that? And so then I started going and like playing with, just Googling color palettes and different things. And as I was going through the process, I was like, because you don't have to take the words literal, right? Like orange could be a coral. It could be a light peach, so you can take liberties with that. And so what I ended up coming up with her brand was, it's not even a purple or an indigo. It's more of a beet, whatever that is. But anyway, and then this beautiful coral, and those are her two primary colors. And I would have not probably ever thought of that or put that together. But then when I started looking, I was like, this is her. And again, we had the goosebumps moment. I'm very neutral, and I'm like, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? Actually, I asked, what do you feel? I don't care what you think. And she just burst into tears, and she's like, this is me. Like, oh my gosh. So I the answer to your question in a long round way is, it is so, you just can't ever tell. It really is different. Now, I will say, with a lot of women, empowerment and different things like that, turquoise seems to be a great foundational color, feminine for women, and then you can accent that with like a yellow or a coral or things like that. So,
and then how would you say, like 2 and 3rd?
You have two primary colors, at most that you're going to play with more so kind of so imagine like if you have your the name and then a tagline. I like to only use those two colors to represent maybe your logo bug, like whatever your image is, and then the words, and then your tagline ideally should. I mean, you sometimes they reverse themselves, but most of the time they don't. But like let's say somebody was purple, right? And let's say they picked gray as like a secondary color. Well, you might put their name in gray and let that be predominant, and then the tagline be in purple, right? But normally your third accent color would be a gray, a black, a silver, a gold, and we would play with those as like that third color. So yeah.
Awesome. Great learning. I love it. And so what are you excited about concerning what are you most excited at the conference?
So for me, I think the most exciting thing for me is to honestly be amongst my tribe. I'm going to get emotional. I'm really looking forward to meeting just a tribe of other women and some men, that really are just in a different space, right? And then where we all can play together and we all can learn from each other. And I'm really looking forward to, I just already know that they aren't going to be in that space of mine, ego. So I just can't even tell you how excited I am just to meet people and just experience that, kind of that just whatever you want to call it, kindership. What is the word? I'm going blank. Yeah. So that's the most exciting thing to me. Yeah.
Oh yay! So happy about connection, building a community. So the fact that we're being out here again, you can feel that it's happening. You're gonna have a great. So fun. And then, so what is your talk be about? Where are you to a conference as a brand?
So what I'm planning to talk about, the name of my talk will be Branding from Essence. And, in that, I'm going to really get into identifying and using, discovering who your ego and your essence is and how that plays a role in your business and how to effectively balance those two. Because quite frankly, it's the most important thing as far as I'm concerned for any business owner is to have that relationship and be able to have that self-talk where, you want to make that phone call and you want to jump back on, something that somebody sent you. And it's like, just to be able to center yourself and say, okay, wait a minute, is this my ego leading me or my essence? Because sometimes we make, 20, 40, 50, some of us maybe 100, decisions in a day. And so how much is that affecting, you know what I'm saying, the vibration we're bringing into our business. And so it really is, we're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to see a lot of brands. I'm going to show some examples of just what that feels like when you do kind of get that right. So we're going to talk about how our senses, like seeing, hearing, and feeling, and how when all of those are aligned, even just in what we're representing on a website, how people are just going to be attracted to you. It's like you're not even going to have to do much because they're just going to, obviously got to get your website out there, but they're just going to get that. And then the third thing we're going to talk about, again, all relative under kind of the whole branding concept, but from a space, a heart space, right? And so the last part that we're going to talk about is, balancing boundaries and behaviors and how all of that also plays into, what you're putting out there. So it's just been tried and true. And I'm so passionate about this because, we've got some clients that they really are in this beautiful space and their businesses flourish. They're flourishing in their personal life. I mean, they really are finding that harmony. So yeah, so I'm excited.
That's so exciting. I feel like there's a lot of that will come, especially in that space, right? People want to be trusted. They want their clients to really get who they are, so that they can help clients.
Yeah, and the last piece I'll say on that is, you know, a lot of people, you know, like you said in the very beginning, you said, you know, a lot of people just think that it's a logo and a, you know, and colors, and so back to that, you know, what's interesting for me is, you know, I love helping build new brands with people that are just starting their business. I mean, that is so rewarding, and yet so many of my clients are people that they already have a brand. Some of them have been in business 5 years, 10 years, and they're finding that they're kind of stagnant. And so a lot of times a conversation is just sparked up by, you know, my business is kind of stagnant and I'm not sure what's going on. And so, you know, even just doing an inventory and looking at that, many times we end up moving into that whole process and they rebrand because they finally recognize, well, something's not working. And sometimes it's not that you're doing anything wrong, it's that maybe you've just evolved and you are attracting a different audience when you're meeting people, right? Which is what was true for us. But what the brand represents might just not have caught up with, you know what I'm saying? So you know what I'm talking about? Like when you meet somebody and then if you go to their website and you're like, wait a minute, that wasn't who I met. So you want to make sure all that works together, that no matter if they come across you on social media or your website or somebody hands them you know, an old business card or whatever, they meet you in person, that all of that, it's like the walk, the talk, it all has that congruent consistency. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that's so important. Businesses or newer businesses don't really best and that they're right. Just another part of it is uniform there. And it's been interesting with my marketing. They haven't really been used to and have that brand book and having voice. I'm like, no, it has to be the same everywhere. Like, go back, read it again.
Exactly. Exactly. No, that's so great. That's wonderful. Yeah. And you can tell I'm so passionate about it. I really thought my answers would be short, but I love talking about this. I really do because, yeah. And by the way, I do need to say, because if I don't say this, then I'll feel like Lily will say to me later, I know it sounds kooky, but she'll be like, wait a minute, I don't feel like I was heard. So what I have to say is really what I have made a commitment in my business and I've changed and I've shifted is I do not work with a client until they sign a coaching agreement with me. I get permission to, as we're doing the business stuff, to be able to have that permission to say, I'm sensing that, you know, we're hitting a wall here, and let's talk about that. You know, obviously I keep confidentiality, but before like a couple weeks ago, we had a client, we were trying to schedule a photo shoot, and she just kept kind of, you know what I mean? Like not just, yes, okay, here's the date, let's do it. And we were able to use that as an opportunity to help push through some of her fears and her walls. And so, you know what I'm saying? A lot of times in business, if you don't, like before I didn't have that permission. And so I'd be like, oh, okay. You know, and so now I'm a certified master coach. I have the skills and the techniques. And so I'm finding that combining my business and then that coaching side is what really is fun for me, and it helps people grow, and we're all happy. So.
Well, I'm glad Lily spoke up because it's really important. Not only because they're getting their business, but being an entrepreneur, and I learned that the hard way after 8 years and growing and learning every day. There are walls that you face many times. If you're a first time entrepreneur in your family, your friend circle, they can't really help you through that. Until you push through that, you can't really evolve.
That's so true. It's so true. And again, I had to learn from my past clientele, you know, and I now have such a special place in my heart to understand. You know, there'd be times that we would just give them things, right? That it would just come and we would give it to them and they would be like, ah. And now, you know, as I've gone through my own journey of building my own brand and doing different things, that now I understand why that's not so easy, right? Because it's like, it can't be that easy, right? And so there's that compassion there now, you know, and you kind of have to go through your own journey to be able to understand where people are coming from. So it's nice to be able now to support people in that way. and it's fun for me now, right? Like I don't dread it because so yeah.
That's great. And I send to our viewers, we have a couple more minutes. If you have a branding, drop it below in comments. And also, I'm very curious. So, whoever's watching this video, who is your ego? Who is your essence? We met because I dropped mine below, but I would like to know your ego and your essence.
And we'll do that in the class too. So for people that are coming to the conference, it'll be a fun exercise. So
I think that's fantastic. Really labeling it. I'll drop mine below. My ego is.
Yep.
And on
this, you say that again. I'm sorry.
And my essence is.
Oh, very cool. Say that one more time. You broke out.
Endura.
Oh.
It means light.
Very nice. Very nice. That is so
cool. My friends, girl.
And sometimes they don't make sense. Like, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes they're not like real names. Like, and Lily came to me not as like a name Lily, but when it came to me and the exercise was done where I discovered mine, it was just, I saw a white lily flower. And I was just like, Lily, that, you know what I mean? That's it. So, so nice to meet you. Lily says, nice to meet you. Some people maybe.
Which one is she talking about?
These women are nuts. What are they talking about? But it's all good. It's all good.
There's so much more to this conference. Everybody just needs to.
Well, I know, right? And I would just like to say once again, thank you. I'm just so grateful to meet you. A shout out to Miss Katie Bray that connected us, and I'm in gratitude to her. I just adore her. We've known each other for years, and I just think the world of her. I feel the world of her. So, and again, thank you for letting me be a part of this. I'm looking forward to being there and meeting you in person. So,
yes, we're so excited to come here in Southern California. For those of you who are watching in the conference, we have 40 fabulous Lisa as well. And instead of October 1st, early bird in at the end of this month, so make sure you get your ticket. So thank you so much for being here today, and I hope you have a wonderful day very soon.
All right, see you soon. Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.